my God. Noah, I checked my screen time this morning, and honestly, I'm a little freaked out. Guess how much time I spend on my phone daily?
Oh no, this sounds intense. Okay, how bad are we talking?
7 hours. 7 hours on my phone every single day. And get this, 3 of those hours are just on TikTok.
3 hours on TikTok alone? That's a whole movie and a half. What do you even watch for that long?
I know, right? A little of everything, honestly. It's like, I open the app, and then suddenly it's 3 hours later, and I've watched 100 different things I didn't even plan to.
Hey listeners, if you haven't done this recently, I dare you to check your screen time too. Go ahead and take a peek. It's probably way more than you think. And if you're brave enough, drop it in the comments so we can all see where we're at.
Yes, share those numbers. No judgment here, we're all in the same boat. Infinite scrolling just sucks us in, you know? TikTok, Instagram, even news apps, they all make it so easy to just keep scrolling.
It's like this never-ending river of content designed to keep us hooked. I mean, just think about it. You scroll down and bam, there's more. And then, there's more after that. It never really ends.
And we get so used to it. It's part of daily life now. Just pick up the phone, scroll a bit, or a lot, and hours just disappear. But then, where does that leave us at the end of the day?
Exactly. And that's our big question for today. How can we take back control? Is it possible to stop that endless cycle of scrolling and save some serious time every day?
And we'll be recommending a documentary about tech companies designing these addictions for us later in this episode. And watching it will definitely give you a whole new perspective on cell phone addiction.
Yes. Now let's dig into why we're so hooked on this habit and figure out some strategies to break free and learn some useful expressions related to this topic.
All right, so why do we scroll endlessly? I mean, it's no accident, right? These apps are actually designed to keep us scrolling for as long as possible. One of the key tricks they use is something called a dopamine loop.
Yes, the dopamine loop. So, for our listeners, dopamine is a chemical in our brains that gives us that feel-good sensation. When we see something exciting or funny, or even something shocking, our brain releases dopamine, which makes us feel rewarded. Social media apps play on this by giving us those little hits of dopamine, like one right after the other.
Exactly. And this keeps us coming back because it's unpredictable. That's where this idea of variable rewards comes in. Sometimes you scroll and find something amazing. Other times, it's kind of boring. But because you don't know what's coming next, you keep scrolling in case the next post is worth it.
It's like when you're scrolling TikTok and you hit a really funny video out of nowhere, right? That little reward is just enough to keep you going, hoping the next scroll will be just as good. And by the way, variable rewards aren't just for social media. You could use it like this. Some video games are designed with variable rewards, which keep players excited and coming back for more.
Yes. So, the dopamine loop is when your brain keeps you hooked, and variable rewards keep the excitement up. It's a powerful combo, and it's hard to break because, well, who doesn't like that little rush of excitement?
But there's also one more reason. FOMO. It stands for fear of missing out. This feeling is probably familiar to a lot of people. FOMO keeps us checking our phones constantly to make sure we're not missing any big news or trends. I mean, how many times have you opened Instagram or TikTok just because you're worried everyone else is in on something you don't know about?
Oh, all the time. FOMO is real. And that constant need to stay in the loop just keeps us scrolling, even if we're not all that interested. It's like if there's a new meme or some huge news, you need to know about it.
Totally. And then there's one more reason we keep scrolling: escapism. It's a bit of a relief from daily life. When we're stressed or bored, infinite scrolling is this quick escape that distracts us from whatever's going on.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes it just feels easier to tune out by watching funny videos or scrolling through posts. So whether it's to avoid boredom or stress, scrolling becomes a go-to distraction.
And here's the thing. When you add all of these together, you can see why it's so hard to just stop. We're getting dopamine hits, fighting FOMO, and escaping reality, all with just one little swipe.
Now, if you're curious about how deep this goes, There's actually a great documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. It dives right into how social media is designed to keep us hooked, with insights straight from the people who built these apps.
Yes, it's honestly eye-opening. The Social Dilemma explains how all those dopamine loops, variable rewards, and even our FOMO aren't accidents. They're built right into the apps to keep us coming back.
They have interviews with former tech designers, people who literally invented these addictive features, and they talk about the impact it has on our minds, our relationships, even our attention spans. It's definitely a must-watch if you want to understand why it's so hard to quit infinite scrolling.
And if you're looking for some extra motivation to take control of your screen time, this documentary will definitely make you think twice about picking up your phone every few minutes. So, check it out, The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Did you know that scrolling is actually one of the main reasons so many of us feel anxious these days?
Yeah, it's crazy, but it makes sense. Spending hours comparing our lives to what we see online can seriously mess with our mental health. The more we scroll, the more we're exposed to these idealized snapshots of other people's lives, and it's easy to start feeling like we're not measuring up.
We end up comparing ourselves to these perfect moments we see, even though we know they're edited or just the highlights. But it still gets to us, creating this feeling of inadequacy. I mean, you see someone's fancy vacation or their latest big achievement, and you can't help but wonder, why isn't my life like that?
And over time, that comparison really takes a toll on our mental health. Studies show that this constant comparison can increase anxiety and stress levels. It's like we're setting ourselves up to feel less than without even realizing it.
Plus, there's the whole issue of productivity. I mean, how many times have we opened our phones just for 5 minutes, only to lose an hour or more in that endless scroll?
Oh, totally guilty of that. And it's not just wasted time. It also messes with our focus. Every time we pull out our phones to check something, we're breaking our concentration, which makes it even harder to get back into what we were doing. Imagine all that time and energy we could be using for meaningful activities instead.
Imagine if you spent the 3 hours a day you spend on TikTok on something else, like exercise. You might already have the body you want, and if you spend it on reading, it might already be enough to finish the books you read this year.
Yes, I've always wanted to spend more time learning to play guitar, but I always complain that I don't have the time. But I actually spend hours a day on my phone. I could have probably learned to play guitar already.
Yes! Instead of creating, learning, or spending quality time with friends or family, we're stuck scrolling through random content. And that can leave us feeling empty, like we spent all this time but gain nothing from it.
And it's not just our minds that suffer. Our bodies do too. Ever notice how your posture slumps when you're holding your phone for too long? It's like we're turning into little hunched-over scroll zombies.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's the eye strain. All that screen time really strains our eyes, especially when we're up late staring at our phones in the dark. That blue light actually disrupts our sleep, making it harder to wind down at night.
Right, and poor sleep can lead to a whole host of other issues. It's like this cycle. Scrolling affects our sleep, lack of sleep makes us more anxious, and then we keep scrolling to escape the stress. And it all starts to pile up.
So, mental health, productivity, physical health, infinite scrolling affects pretty much every part of our lives. And until we break the habit, these impacts are just going to keep growing.
All right, so let's talk solutions. How do we actually break free from this cycle of infinite scrolling? I mean, it's not easy, but there are a few practical steps we can take.
First, it all starts with awareness and mindfulness. Just noticing how much time we're spending on our phones is a huge step. I'd say check your screen time regularly. It's like holding up a mirror to your habits. You might not even realize how much those little scrolling sessions add up.
Totally. And turning off notifications can make a big difference too. Those little pings and alerts from TikTok or Instagram are designed to pull us back in. If they're off, we're less likely to get distracted every time our phone lights up.
Yes, without that constant nudge, it's easier to stay focused on what we're actually doing. Now, another thing that helps? Setting clear boundaries. Most phones now have screen time features where you can limit your usage on certain apps. So, if you want to cap TikTok at 30 minutes a day, set it and stick to it.
And if you're really serious about breaking the habit, there are apps out there specifically to block social media after a certain time. It's like putting up a barrier so you can't just keep scrolling without thinking.
I like that. Because sometimes we're on autopilot and a reminder or block can snap us out of it. And here's another tip. Reframe your goals for social media. Instead of opening an app to scroll, try going in with a purpose, like messaging a friend or finding a specific post. It helps you use social media with intention instead of just zoning out.
That's such a good point. If you know what you're there to do, you're less likely to just wander into the endless feed. And if you're there to learn or connect, it feels like a healthier use of your time too.
And let's be real, sometimes we scroll because we're bored or don't know what else to do. So it helps to find some alternative activities. Maybe you pick up a hobby, get into exercising, or even just go outside for a walk. Anything to give yourself something else to do instead of scrolling.
Yeah, it's all about filling that time with things that actually make us feel good or give us something real. Whether it's reading, talking with a friend, or trying something new, there's so much out there that's more fulfilling than endless scrolling.
So, if you're looking to break free, try these tips. Track your screen time, turn off those notifications, set limits, go in with a purpose, and replace scrolling with real-world activities. It's all about taking control one step at a time.
And remember, it doesn't have to be a huge change all at once. Small steps can make a big difference in helping us take back our time.
So, we've talked about why we get stuck in the scrolling cycle and how to break it. But let's dig into the benefits. What actually happens when we start spending less time glued to our screens?
Well, for starters, you get a huge boost in focus. Studies show that reducing screen time can seriously improve our concentration. When we're not constantly checking our phones, it's easier to stay engaged with whatever we're working on, and our creativity tends to flow more naturally too.
Oh, totally. It's amazing how much more you can get done when you're not breaking your attention every few minutes. And I feel like we actually get better at creative problem solving, like our minds have more space to come up with new ideas.
Exactly. And another big plus? Better sleep. Cutting back on scrolling, especially before bed, makes a huge difference. All that screen time at night messes with our sleep patterns, so reducing it can help us get a more restful night.
Yeah, blue light from screens tricks our brains into thinking it's still daytime, which keeps us awake longer. But when we put the phone down early, our bodies get a chance to wind down properly, and we fall asleep faster. I mean, good sleep is priceless.
And we can't forget the overall sense of well-being. Spending less time on screens gives us room to enjoy real-life moments. Whether it's connecting with people face-to-face, exploring hobbies, or just being in the moment, it feels so refreshing.
It really does. There's something deeply satisfying about spending time doing things that don't involve a screen. It's like a mental reset. We're less stressed, less anxious, and just feel more grounded in the real world.
So, improved focus, better sleep, and a boost to our mental and emotional health. All of that just from putting our phones down more often. It's pretty amazing how much of a difference it makes.
If you're on the fence about cutting down screen time, remember all these benefits waiting for you on the other side. A little effort goes a long way.
All right, let's wrap it up. So today, we've explored the cycle of infinite scrolling, the impact it has on our lives, and some tips to break free.
We talked about the psychology behind why we scroll, like dopamine loops and FOMO, and shared strategies to take back control, like tracking your screen time, setting app limits, and finding other ways to spend your time.
And remember, there's a whole world waiting beyond the screen. If you're looking for some extra motivation, definitely check out The Social Dilemma on Netflix. It might just be the push you need to make some real changes.
Now, here's a question for all of you listening. What could you do with an extra hour a day away from your screen? Just think about that. An extra hour could be used for a hobby, connecting with friends, or even just relaxing.
And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. What's your biggest challenge with quitting infinite scrolling? Or, if you've already made progress, tell us what's worked for you. We're all in this together, and your stories can inspire others too.
So take that first step, even if it's just small changes. Start reducing your screen time and see how it feels. You might be surprised by how much more connected, focused, and calm you can be.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Let's break free from the scroll and start making more time for the things that really matter.
Until next time, keep challenging yourself and finding new ways to grow. See you in the next episode.